Welcome back to the Wartime Military Podcast. On June 29, 1944, in the brutal hedgerow country of Villers-Façade, France, Staff Sergeant Lafayette Poole and his crew entered their first battle. They had trained for years, but nothing prepares a man for the metallic crash of a Panzerfaust rocket striking his own tank. In just 5 days of combat, Poole's first Sherman, In the Mood, was a burning wreck, forcing him and his crew to bail out. They had survived, but their war had just begun, and they were now tankers with no tank. What does a man do when his very first taste of combat ends in total failure? Next, we will delve deeper into this story.
If you listen to enough World War II history, one thing seems pretty settled. The American M4 Sherman tank was, well, technologically inferior.
Yeah, you hear it all the time. Thin armor, a gun that struggled against the German big cats, the Panther, the Tiger. You know, on paper, American tankers looked seriously outmatched, sometimes fatally so.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this particular story just so mind-blowing. Because if the tech was lacking, how do you explain this? How did one American Staff Sergeant, Lafayette Poole, and his 4-man crew rack up a combat record that honestly sounds like fiction?
It's staggering. We're talking about an estimated 258 enemy armored vehicles destroyed. Now, that includes 12 confirmed tanks, kills against tanks like Panthers, and potentially over 1,000 enemy soldiers killed, all in just 81 days of combat.
81 days. Those numbers are just astronomical. He's a total outlier.
Yeah.
And Poole himself, he was this big 6'2" Texas farm boy, former Golden Gloves boxing champ, leading this crew with nicknames like Baby, Schoolboy, Groundhog, and Jailbird.
Right. And you have to remember the context. Casualty rates for Allied tankers, especially frontline units like the 3rd Armored, were horrifyingly high. What Poole and his crew did, I mean, it just shouldn't have been possible.
So this is really the ultimate case study, isn't it? It pits crew skill, training, and just sheer aggression against technological superiority.
Exactly. And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're digging into the service record of Staff Sergeant Poole, nicknamed War Daddy, during those intense 83 days with the 3rd Armored Division, the Spearhead Division from Normandy, right up to the German border, the Siegfried Line.
We're using the sources to really unpack how the human element, the crew's cohesion, and Poole's leadership could overcome those hardware disadvantages.
We're basically showing that the man and the team around him often mattered way more than the machine. Okay, let's get into it.
Okay, let's unpack this. If it wasn't the tank itself, then the edge must have come from Poole himself, his preparation, his mindset. He grew up in Texas, Sinton, used to hard work. But he wasn't just brawn, right?
Not at all. The sources stress his intelligence. He was valedictorian, studied engineering for a bit before he enlisted in 41. So, a sharp guy.
And competitive, that seems key.
Oh, intensely competitive. And disciplined. You really see that forged in his amateur boxing career. He had this amazing record, something like 41 wins, no defeats, even won a sectional Golden Gloves title.
And you think that boxing mindset directly translated?
Absolutely. Think about it. Boxing demands lightning-fast reflexes, strategic thinking on your feet, aggression, obviously, but also the mental toughness to keep going when you're under pressure, when you're taking hits. That's exactly what you need inside a tank in combat.
That drive, that intensity, it explains a really interesting decision he made early on. He joined the 3rd Armored, had the chance for a commission, become an officer, lieutenant, maybe captain, but he turned it down.
Why? Yeah, that's fascinating. He refused it because he wanted to be where the fighting was. He said he preferred to fight from a tank, to lead from the front. He wanted to be making those split-second tactical calls right there with his guys, not commanding from the rear.
Staying a staff sergeant kept him grounded in the action.
Precisely. And that intense lead from the front style fit perfectly with the whole ethos of the 3rd Armored Division. The Spearhead, they were always pushing, always aggressive, always taking the most dangerous assignments. Poole embodied that.
So his approach to training his crew must have been, well, pretty full-on.
Relentless. Absolutely relentless. He genuinely believed that the difference between a top-notch, well-drilled crew and just an average one was, quite literally, life or death. He drilled them constantly, gunnery, tactics, understanding German methods, until their actions were almost subconscious.
That competitive streak pops up again, doesn't it? There's that story about the exhibition boxing match in England, July 44.
Oh, yeah, against Joe Louis, the heavyweight champ. Undefeated at the time. Poole true to form, went after Louis with everything he had, just pure aggression.
And Louis apparently took him aside and said something like, "White man, I'm going to teach you a big lesson."
Exactly. Poole learned that raw aggression wasn't enough. You needed skill, timing, tactical smarts to back it up. It was a humbling, but probably vital lesson right before heading into combat.
Okay, so we have this aggressive, intelligent, highly trained commander. Now, how did he actually command inside the tank? There's this paradox about his claustrophobia.
Right, the claustrophobia paradox. It sounds counterintuitive, but his intense fear of enclosed spaces became a tactical advantage because he couldn't stand being buttoned up inside the tank.
He was almost always riding exposed in the commander's hatch, or sometimes even sitting right on top of the turret.
Yeah, perched right up there. Which, I mean, talk about vulnerability. He was a sitting duck for snipers, machine guns, artillery bursts, anything.
So incredibly dangerous for him personally.
Hugely dangerous. But the payoff was immense situational awareness. Riding high like that, he could see everything. Spot threats way earlier than a commander peering through narrow vision slits. Identify targets faster. Communicate directly, face-to-face almost, with the infantry moving alongside.
So that vulnerability bought him vital seconds.
Vital seconds, exactly. That split-second edge in observation and reaction, bought at extreme personal risk, let him dictate the terms of engagement over and over again.
And his crew's survival depended on that awareness and how well they worked together. Let's talk about the pups, his crew.
Yeah, Corporal Wilbert Baby Richards, the driver. Only 5'4", but apparently could handle that 33-ton Sherman like it was, a sports car. Incredibly skilled.
Yeah, and PFC Bertrand schoolboy. Close, the bow gunner, just 17 years old.
Just a kid, yeah. And Corporal Willis Groundhog Aller, the gunner, super focused, apparently kept his eye glued to the gun sight constantly. And T5 Delbert Jailbird Boggs, the loader, critical job. Needed strength and speed to keep the shells coming.
And they named their tank In the Mood.
Right after the Glenn Miller tune. Popular song back then. Captured that feeling. Poole wanted aggressive, confident, always moving forward. He actually named 3 different Shermans in the Mood in succession.
Okay, let's tackle the elephant in the room here. The technical specs.
Yeah.
The Sherman versus the German tanks.
Yeah, you can't ignore it. The standard M4 Sherman, especially early on with the 75mm gun, was just outgunned. The German Panther had that high-velocity 75mm KWK-42 gun. The Tiger had the legendary 88mm.
Guns that could kill a Sherman from way out.
Way out. We're talking 1,500, maybe 2,000 yards. Ranges where the Sherman 75mm often just couldn't reliably penetrate the frontal armor of a Panther, let alone a Tiger. The Sherman often had to get inside 500 yards, sometimes closer, to have a real chance.
So if the enemy can hit you effectively long before you can hit them, how did Poole possibly win so consistently? This feels like where his background, his tactical thinking really comes in.
It does. His solution was brutal, simple, and demanded incredible nerve from the whole crew. His philosophy was basically shoot first, shoot to kill, always go forward, never retreat.
Always go forward. So, charge the enemy.
Essentially, yes. Aggressively close the distance. He figured the only way to beat the German advantage in range and armor was to get so close that those advantages didn't matter as much.
Why did getting close help the Sherman?
Because it flipped the script. At close range, say under 300 yards, other factors become more important. The Sherman was generally more maneuverable than the big German tanks. It had a faster turret traverse, and crucially, often a higher rate of fire.
The loader. Jailbird Boggs.
Exactly. A fast, reliable loader like Boggs could slam shells into the breach incredibly quickly. German tanks sometimes used 2-part ammo, which slowed them down. Poole's crew could often get off 2, maybe even 3 shots for every one the German tank fired back. Plus, at close range, you're not always facing thick frontal armor. You can hit weaker side or rear armor, which the Sherman's gun could penetrate.
Okay, so his combat starts June 29, 1944, Villers-Fossard. His first tank, In the Mood, an early 75mm model. Doesn't last long. Nope. 5 days. Knocked out by a German Panzerfaust, a shoulder-fired anti-tank weapon near a village called La Forge.
But the crew
All got out okay. 0 casualties, which, again, speaks volumes about their training and bailout drills. They knew exactly what to do when hit. And they were back in action almost immediately in a new tank, In the Mood 2.
And this one had an important upgrade.
A really critical one. It was an M4A1 76W. The key things there are the 76 and the W. The 76mm gun offered significantly better armor penetration, much needed against the Panthers they were facing more and more.
And the W, what did that stand for?
Wet stowage. This was a massive improvement for crew survivability and morale. It meant the ammunition racks inside the tank were surrounded by water or an anti-freeze mixture, usually in the floor.
Why was it so important?
Because if the tank's armor was penetrated, the liquid surrounding the shells would flood the area and dramatically reduce the chance of the ammunition catching fire and exploding, the infamous brewing up that gave Sherman's the grim nickname Ronsons, because they lit up easily. So knowing your tank was less likely to become an instant inferno must have made a huge psychological difference.
Oh, absolutely. It allowed crews like Poole's to be even more aggressive, knowing they had a better chance of surviving a hit.
Unfortunately, in the Mood 2, even with the upgrades, also met its end, though not from the enemy this time.
No, tragically, it was lost to friendly fire on August 17th, hit by American P-38 Lightning fighter bombers near Fremantle during the confusion of the advance. A devastating loss, especially after that tank had already racked up a significant number of kills.
So now we get to In the Mood 3, and this is where some of the most famous incidents happen, showcasing that incredible crew synchronization, like the night engagement near Landsnell-Herman.
Right. Poole, riding high as usual, spots a German 40mm anti-aircraft gun set up for ground defense. It's maybe 50 feet away. Its crew has no idea the Sherman is there.
And Poole doesn't use the radio, does he?
No time. Doesn't want to give away his position with static or chatter. He just yells down into the turret, "Gunner, fire!"
And Aller, the gunner.
Groundhog Oller, eye pressed to the sight, reacts instantly. Bang! The gun is destroyed. The whole thing, from Poole spotting it to the shot being fired, took less than 3 seconds. It's pure instinct, total trust between commander and gunner.
That kind of speed was absolutely vital in that famous duel near Colombia, France. Can you paint the picture?
Yeah, it's incredible. They round a corner or crest a rise and nearly collide head-on with a German Panther, a beast of a tank. They're maybe 30 yards apart, point-blank range.
At that range, the Panther's gun is terrifying.
Absolutely lethal. And the German commander reacts fast, gets off 2 quick shots. Incredibly, both miss Poole's tank by inches. Just pure luck.
But then Poole's crew reacts.
Master. Relying on that ingrained training, Oller doesn't just aim center mass at the thickest armor. He knows the Panther's weaknesses. He targets the turret ring, the join between the turret and the hull.
A known vulnerability.
A known vulnerability. The Sherman's 76mm round hits it dead on. It penetrates, likely jams the turret traverse, and causes a massive secondary explosion inside the Panther. Catastrophic kill. Poole won a duel against a superior machine through speed, accurate gunnery hitting a weak spot, and just sheer close-quarters audacity.
And that story must have spread like wildfire.
Instantly. Throughout the 3rd Armored, it became legendary proof that you could take on the big cats and win if you fought aggressively and smart up close.
That aggressive doctrine became even more critical after Operation Cobra, late July 44, the breakout from the Normandy hedgerows.
Right. The fighting changed dramatically. No more grinding hedgerow battles. It became a high-speed pursuit across France, and Poole's tank was constantly at the point, spearheading the advance.
Which was the most dangerous place to be.
By far. Lead elements took the brunt of any ambushes, any defensive stands. Casualty rates for Spearhead tanks were just astronomical.
And his Distinguished Service Cross Action reflects that, right? America's 2nd highest award for valor.
Exactly. Awarded for 3 days of intense fighting in late August. Poole, often operating ahead of the main force, sometimes almost alone, destroyed 4 German tanks, including 2 Panthers in a single fight, plus 3 anti-tank guns. He just kept pushing forward, disrupting enemy defenses, allowing his task force to advance rapidly. He forced the enemy to react to him.
But it wasn't just relentless aggression, was it? There's that anecdote from the Falaise Gap, more complex.
Yeah, it's a really striking moment. Chaos during the Falaise Gap battle, German forces collapsing, retreating. Poole sees a large group of disorganized, clean German soldiers, and he actually says over the radio, "Ain't got the heart to kill 'em." A moment of empathy, maybe exhaustion, but then almost immediately you hear the chatter of schoolboy closes bow machine gun opening up on them. Tactical reality bites back. You can't just let enemy soldiers escape to potentially regroup and fight again. And Poole immediately shifts back into commander mode saying, "Watch the bastards run. Give it to them close." It's that stark contrast, that tension between personal feeling and the brutal necessities of combat.
So after surviving all this, weeks and weeks of leading the charge, taking incredible risks, his luck finally runs out. September 19th, 1944, near Aachen, in a place called Münsterbusch.
Yeah, and the irony is just cruel. He and his crew were literally days away from rotating back to the States for a war bonds tour. They'd earned it, survived against all odds.
And they had specific orders not to be at the front.
Explicit orders. Command knew how valuable he was, maybe how lucky he'd been. Orders were, do not spearhead, stay on the flank. Play it safe for once. And another twist of fate. His regular, trusted gunner, Groundhog Aller, had just been rotated back home temporarily.
So there was a replacement gunner in the turret.
Private First Class Paul Kenneth King, brand new to the crew.
And even on that supposedly safer flanking mission.
They get ambushed. A hidden German Panther gets a first shot off.
Hits in the Mood 3.
Yeah. The round penetrates the turret. The replacement gunner, King, is killed instantly. Poole, riding exposed in the hatch as always, is hit by shrapnel. His right leg is shredded.
An injury so bad it required amputation.
8 inches above the knee. After 83 days of non-stop, high-intensity combat at the very tip of the spear, he's taken out on a safe mission, losing his leg and a crew member just days before going home. It's just brutal.
His final tally is incredible. 258 enemy vehicles, 12 confirmed tanks in just 83 days. Numerous awards, DSC, Silver Star, Legion of Merit, French Legion of Honor. But the biggest question hangs over his legacy. Why no Medal of Honor? He was nominated twice.
Yeah, and the official reasoning is really telling about the mindset back then. The justification for rejection was essentially that tanks are crew-served weapons, and therefore individual heroism within a tank didn't quite fit the criteria for the Medal of Honor, which was often seen through an infantry-centric lens.
So they didn't fully appreciate the commander's individual role.
It seems that way. They undervalued the sheer leadership, the tactical genius, the constant personal risk-taking required from a commander like Poole, who was the absolute brain and nerve center of that weapon system. It was a flawed perspective, really.
Still, his influence didn't end there. He actually re-enlisted after losing his leg.
Amazingly, yes. Re-enlisted in 1948, served until 1960, retiring as a chief warrant officer. And importantly, he became an instructor. He passed on those hard-won lessons, those aggressive tactics, his focus on crew synchronization to new generations of American tankers.
And that legacy is still tangible today.
Very much so. The Tank Driver Training Simulator Hall down at Fort Knox, it's dedicated in his honor. So War Daddy's methods are still, in a way, training soldiers. And of course, there's the cultural impact. The character War Daddy, played by Brad Pitt in the movie Fury, explicitly based on Lafayette Poole.
There's also a deeply personal, tragic postscript to his story involving his son.
Yes, a very sad echo of war. Poole's son, Captain Jerry Lynn Poole Sr., was an Army Special Forces officer. He was killed in action in Cambodia during the Vietnam War back in 1970. His remains weren't actually recovered and identified until 2001, just a profound family connection to service and sacrifice across generations.
So when you boil it all down, Poole's incredible run really proves something fundamental, doesn't it?
It really does. It demonstrates that the American military's strength wasn't just industrial might, though that helped. It was also about superior training and finding these incredibly aggressive, highly skilled, disciplined leaders like Poole who could maximize the potential of their crews and equipment, even when technically outmatched. He proved the human factor, the skill, the will, the teamwork could make all the difference.
It leaves you with a really potent thought, though. Poole survived 83 days of unbelievable danger by constantly taking risks, pushing forward. Then, on a mission where he was explicitly told to be cautious, on the flank, he suffers a catastrophic injury and loses his replacement gunner. So what does that final ironic twist tell you about the balance between skill and pure luck in war? And maybe about Poole's own hard-learned lesson, that in combat, the idea of safety is always ultimately an illusion.